I gave myself 1 week to learn electronics since apparently I suck at it. And this was the result after 16 days of learning, confusion, and troubleshooting. A real-life Factorio factory that comes to life every time someone subscribes to my channel. In this video, I'm reading through an entire book to learn electronics in just 4 days. Then I'm spending 12 more days wrestling with the wrong kind of servo motors, terrible mechanical engineering skills, stale hobby paints, and increasingly confusing electronic components. Bro! No! And it was somehow all worth it in the end because the factory must grow. The first part of my learning approach is finding the best resource to figure out what I don't know yet. And for this challenge, it was a book everyone on Reddit recommends, Make Electronics. Then I go through that resource, cover to cover, before starting a way too ambitious project that forces me to apply what I learned and some more. That's how transient knowledge turns into a long-term skill. I'm scared, but let's go. 4 days later, here's where I was at. I got a taste of electronics and finally understood current versus voltage. I got burned, literally. I dropped $200 on components for the book's experiments and only did about half of them. I learned about resistors, relays, transistors, and capacitors. Then I got stuck on making an analog flasher circuit. The thing is meant to just blink an LED. Mine did everything except that, which made me worry about this entire challenge. Am I actually learning anything? I don't know what's wrong with it. I have to give up, I have to stop, I cannot waste more time on it, I'm sorry. I can't go into too much details into all of that, but I do recommend the book, it's pretty good. By the end of those 300 pages, I had learned enough electronics to realize how much electronics I still didn't know. Specifically, there was nothing about microcontrollers. That was slightly concerning because the diorama I wanted to build would need some kind of microcontroller and a bunch of other stuff the book never covered. Yet, I was still confident I could finish this entire challenge in just 1 week, as originally planned. But at that point, I only had 3 days left. Yeah, foolish. Ah, yes. My first idea for the second part of this learning challenge was to build a subscriber counter, crafted out of wood like one of these. I told one of my friends about it and he said it was boring. And if he thought that'd be boring, you'd probably feel the same, right? Then he said something else.
Make it move!
What? How do I make it move? I didn't know for a while, honestly. Then, one evening, it clicked. Yeah, what if I built a Factorio diorama that could count subscribers, processing them like tiny little gears? So I tried to channel my inner nerd forge by drawing out the plan in advance. But sadly for you, I haven't added sketching and drawing to my skillset just yet, so you're stuck with this. I hope you see the vision. And quick side note if you don't know, Factorio is a factory simulation game where you need to extract resources from an alien planet, automate everything, and send a rocket to space. It's amazing and I love it. Be warned though, it's been nicknamed Factorio for a reason. Mission 3. Dioramatization. Yeah, I just made that up. Alright, first I needed to figure out how to bring this factory to life. With my amazing drawing skills, you can see that I want to have moving conveyor belts, a couple of inserters that can pick up a YouTube play button and drop it, some kind of ways to display numbers, a little dude, that's the factory engineer, and that thing on the left is supposed to be a laser turret. And spoiler alert, I'm gonna be adding another one on the other side as well. On the engineering side, I don't know how any of this is gonna work yet, but we'll worry about that later because looks trump functionality, right? Luckily, I found every single model I needed online, and all the links are in the description. Thanks to all the amazing designers who made those. My Bamboo Lab H2C made quick work of the prints, and even the tiny Factorio engineer came out looking great. Just look at him, he's so cute! Once all the components were printed, it was time to assemble them. And the conveyor belts were very time consuming. This is the original model that I scaled down to 50% and printed multiple of in order to create the length I needed for my 2 conveyor belts. But building those belts reminded me of one thing. Martina, once again from Nerdforge, when she was building her 30,000 bricks castle.
It is taking forever to glue all of these bricks on.
My belts were a lot faster to assemble though, I'm not gonna lie, but they still took hours. So I can only imagine what Martina went through with those bricks. Then I cut some pine and MDF to build a rough base on which I could start adding my components. Finally, I mounted my assembled belts on sticks of wood. Yeah, I could have pulled out my computer, 3D designed some better support, but where's the fun in that? Instead, I channeled my inner Studstone studio and kit bashed some rock-solid belt holders out of wood. Yeah, I know, I watch too much YouTube. Let's start at the beginning, with the brain. That's when the ESP32 comes into play. It's a versatile microcontroller that supports Wi-Fi out of the box. The main reason I picked it instead of an Arduino. I went ahead and hooked up the servo motors with my crafted belts. And let me tell you, that first motorized belt run...
Oh my god!
Just glorious. For about a minute. Because trying to superglue a 2mm shaft to a servo horn isn't really engineering, it's hope. And hope isn't actually a coupling mechanism. So I tried a couple more things, superglue and baking soda for rock-hard instant cure, as well as 5-minute epoxy. Both had questionable results and a body count.
You guys want to test the epoxy? It didn't work. Oh, puree!
Because I've fried an embarrassing number of servos this way. The servo is just a motor with benefits, so when a glued coupler stops it from turning, all the current it's pulling becomes heat instead of motion. Stalled like that, it cooks itself in just a few seconds. I also 3D printed some servo motor mounts I found online to attach them to the base. Now, how am I gonna display my subscriber count on this diorama? My first idea was Nixie tubes, because they look awesome. But apparently they work off 170 volt, which is getting quite high for my meager skills. So with Nixie tubes making me very uncomfortable, I looked into 7-segment displays. And each one of those displays has 7 LED segments, which means they each require 7 wires. Since I am very optimistic and want this counter to work until right before 10 million subs, that meant 49 wires to solder. As I was watching a tutorial on wiring 7-segment displays and how much of a struggle it would be, something else popped in my mind.
I could also use this LCD screen. This is way easier to use than those ones. So I'm gonna give it a try.
Fine, it's not as retro vintage as the Nixie tubes or the 7 segments, but it still fits the grungy Factorio vibe, honestly. And it's so much easier to integrate with only 4 wires. Lovely! So yeah, I swapped to an LCD screen.
There we go, hello factory!
Then we needed a power supply. Luckily, I had a 5V 5 amps in storage, which is actually just perfect for this project. I 3D printed an enclosure for it because it is wired to a 220 volt plug and I don't want those dangerous bits exposed anywhere. And I made my first mistake there because I wired a switch after the PSU instead of before. Oops. And I was too lazy to redo the wires, so that means the PSU will always be on if the diorama is plugged. It will work fine, it's just not optimal. You know, every project has a list of things to fix later, with later often meaning never. And ESP32 has 2 rows of pins, and its job is just to set each pin on, aka 3.3 volt, or off, aka 0 volt, in whatever pattern the code decides. Anything wired to a pin reacts to that signal, and that's how we can control a bunch of motors and LEDs.
Oh my god. Oh my goodness.
Finally, my magnet idea for the pickup actually worked. And I guess we'll worry about the drop-off later. Hopefully, I can come up with some kind of physical barrier that forces the magnet to drop. Or not.
Then we start tiling. Okay, we're looking pretty good now.
In my great and rushed preparation for this video, I ordered a bunch of components, including 360-degree servo motors. It was either those or 180. And I don't know, I thought 360 must be better, right? Nope, I was wrong, and that will come back to bite me later. Alright, time for a quick update. The challenge is officially failed because we are 7 days in already.
Why is it not working anymore?
And yet half of the diorama still doesn't work. So how long is this actually gonna take me? I also started breaking that electric pole, and that was only the first time of several to come. And I got hot glue inside my belt tracks. That resulted in a brief meltdown. Not of the tracks, of myself. Before I realized I could just swap those segments. Nothing was ruined.
Oh my god. Surgery completed.
As I was trying to start clearing up and organizing the mess of wires, I had to admit that the way I was connecting the motors with the shafts of my inserters and belts just wasn't great. So yeah, I don't know why it took me that long to open my computer and start designing. Maybe I was intimidated to get back into CAD, but it wasn't that hard. I was even able to do it in Tinkercad. So I designed proper servo mounts and real shaft couplers with heat inserts and M3 screws to lock the shaft in. And those get pressure fitted onto the servo's gear.
I finished 3D printing my servo mounts last night.
Those worked way better than superglue and baking soda. Who would have thought? And yeah, it took way less time to get them designed and printed than however much time I spent working with superglue and epoxy and whatever. Sometimes I swear. Anyway, everything started working better and I happily grinned.
Zooming.
Anyway, it's Factorio in real life, which made me want to go play actual Factorio. This game has kind of ruined me. But I stayed strong and I didn't go, because this tiny factory must grow. So let's tackle another problem that was due to my lack of knowledge. Remember when I only bought 360 servo motors? Well, they are actually continuous rotation servos. You tell them how fast to turn and they will just go on forever. And that's perfect for the belts. It's very similar to regular motors. But for the inserts and turrets, which are supposed to start at a specific position and stop at another specific position, it's not great at all. I can make it work for the turret, but not for the inserters, because they need to stop at precise positions to pick up the play button. And figuring out the speed and timing to move them was extremely tricky. So I gave up. And I ordered a bunch of 180 servo motors, as I should have done in the first place. I also tried to build a remote to control the whole diorama. It didn't really work well, I didn't feel like debugging it, and it wasn't even the right approach anyway. Because a few days later, I discovered something that made all of this completely trivial and gave me some insanely powerful ways to control the entire diorama. I'm gonna be honest, it blew my mind. It's a perfect example of not knowing what you don't know. And obviously you should keep watching if you do want to know at some point. But I'm gonna be honest, that's how you learn. By struggling, by bashing your head against the wall. Figuratively. For now, since I couldn't get the remote to work, I had to use a single button to trigger anything I wanted to test. And to do that, I needed to connect the ESP32 with my computer with a USB cable for every single test. And that was one more thing I wasn't aware of, and I really wish I had, because ESP32s with their wireless capabilities support over-the-air updates. Which means I don't need USB cables. Mission 6. The artist inside every engineer. While waiting on the servo motors, it was time to make this thing look pretty. So I printed out a chunky Factorio / Fallout enclosure for the screen, and I used parts of a leftover 3D printed AMO turret as the base for it. I also secured the perimeter with a wall so the biters cannot get in. If you know, you know. Out came my stale collection of miniature and gunpla paints. Hand painting like this took me straight back to 15-year-old me, painting my army of dark elves. But I was never amazing at it, another skill to fix soon. Which meant I had to channel another nerd to get this section right. No, not the guys from Squidmar Miniatures, I meant Henry Cavill, with whom I have a lot in common. He is a huge WoW player, my second favorite game, and he famously missed the call for the Superman role because he was gaming too hard. Yeah, I can't say that happened to me. Maybe one day. He is also a huge Warhammer nerd. And the good thing about a gritty weathered diorama is that it's supposed to be covered in dust, dirt, and all kinds of suspicious liquids, which can very conveniently hide a questionable paint job. For the rest of the diorama, I applied some black acrylic paint since I didn't have any primer on hand. Then I turned it into concrete by applying 50 shades of grey, dabbed on with a sponge, stippled, not stroked, and added some green grime to complete the apocalyptic look. Then steel paint stippled on the edges of every machine until every part stops looking like 3D printed plastic and starts looking like used metal. And the Factorio signature, the dirty industrial yellow on the turrets and the inserters. And here we have it. Now it's a Factorio factory, a very dirty one.
So let's change the servo motors, organize the wires a bit.
I got the new servos in, the 180 I had recently ordered. The ones that know where they are. And then using my one switch, I started to tune things out very slowly. Our YouTube button pickup works great. The drop is a total failure. And here's the problem in one sentence. A permanent magnet has no off switch. Grabbing the play button is easy, but it won't let it go. And my original idea of having a physical barrier against which the magnet will be blocked and fall off, yeah, that didn't work at all. So the backup solution, which I didn't want to get to because that meant learning how another component worked. But it looks like I don't have a choice, because what I needed was a magnet I could switch on and off. Which is exactly what an electromagnet is. A coil that becomes a magnet when current flows and stops the instant it doesn't. And if you flip things around, it will repel instead of attracting. Small problem. I had never used an electromagnet in my life. So how do you control one from a microcontroller? Well, with a motor controller, because a motor is just an electromagnet in a trench coat. Duh! Didn't you know that? I sure did. The same kind of board that drives a motor can push current through a coil, reverse it or cut it. In the book, I learned about transistors, which are just tiny switches. And that's basically all a motor controller is. A pack of transistors switching the heavy current my little ESP32 pin couldn't handle alone. Except the motor controllers I ordered had a little trick up their sleeves that once again wasted precious time. I got the motor controllers, I wired them, and I could not get them to work. Nothing was happening. So I tried a lot of things, like switching to an entirely new motor controller, but to no avail. So I finally decided to recheck the listing, which obviously never read, and discovered solder jumpers, which is a physical mechanism that lets you configure a component. Because you see, those controllers were on sleep mode by default, and I just needed to melt some solder to get them to be active by default. And that took 30 seconds to fix, after wasting a couple of days debugging the problem. But somehow it still didn't work. So I tried more things. I swapped pins, I changed the board, I bypassed the ESP32 entirely, and oh wait, that worked. So the solder jump fix was working. What was wrong then? I couldn't figure it out.
I can't get it to work. What the hell?
This is the closest I came to quitting, because with no switchable electromagnet, there was no dropping and no factory and no video. I don't even want to tell you how much time I spent on this, but then I found the problem.
First, is it turning on? Nothing's happening. Dude, electronic is so hard.
A single ground wire had popped off the ESP32. That's it. And with no grounding, there's no closed circuit, and there's no flow. That was the whole thing. And just like that, it was working.
It's working! Oh, it's working. Finally test the electromagnet. I have this. Oh! Oh, did you guys see that? Did you see? Magnetized? Demagnetized. Oh my goodness.
The hardest part of the whole build, a magnet I can switch on and off working in my hand. I was so excited. I genuinely didn't know this project was possible when I started. And I thought electromagnets would be way more complicated, but the more I uncovered about electronics, the more it all made sense. Yes, I had to bash my head against the wall for hours on end, debugging the strangest issues, but that was all worth it.
Okay, let's try. You didn't drop it, bro.
It taught me so much, especially what not to do. And through those exhausting hours, I will always remember what not to do. We're not done yet. The magnet works and the factory works are very different sentences. Too low and it won't grab. Or maybe it will grab but it won't let go. And if it does let go, maybe it will be in the wrong spot.
Oh my God.
So run after run, I tested and iterated on the whole approach and tried to figure out a way to make it work. And then, after everything, it finally ran. The belt moved, the inserters grabbed, the magnet carried and then dropped.
Oh my God. It's working. It's working.
14 days in, by the way. Hours of debugging, whose final boss was a loose wire and my own mistakes. Is it perfect? No. Does it work every time? Also no. I mean, yes, it runs, but the play button doesn't always make it to the other side. Sometimes it makes it through the base and falls under because I forgot to put some blockers at the edges. But still, I had a real moving Factorio factory. And honestly, I'll take it. And this is what I meant by step 2 of my learning process. Because while the book gave me the technical knowledge I needed and taught me about resistors, capacitors, transistors, I didn't really understand any of them until this build forced me to use them, fight them, and get them to work. Now, as Tony would say, we're in the end game. I needed to tidy up the wall zone of wiring in the back, and I added an extra level under the screen so the tower stopped hitting it. Then I mounted the screen inside the enclosure, the wrong way, twice.
How am I so stupid?
And I'm showing this on purpose because, you know, it's not all roses. I make dumb mistakes all the time. I just keep fixing them, especially at that point because I was getting really tired of this project. After that, I tried to turn the inserters back into inserters. And then I finally cracked open a static grass applicator I had owned for years, but never used. I applied Mod Podge, which is like glue, dirt, and rotten grass.
Life finds a way.
And just like that, it stopped being a gadget and became a place. Now, remember the thing I teased that would have saved me days? Well, the ESP32 can run its own web server. My diorama has a web app running on the diorama itself. So one evening, since writing web apps is literally my day job, I built a full dashboard for it. And with it, I can trigger any belt, inserter or turret. I can tune every single position, I can flip the magnets on and off, I can run the whole sequence if I want, all from my phone or computer. It even has an idle mode when nobody's subscribing. The turrets slowly scan for biters that never really come. Oh, I should have put a dead biter in the diorama somewhere. Why didn't I think of it? Anyway, the absolute best part, I can upload new code wirelessly now thanks to over-the-air or OTA. No more dangling cable. If I'd found these two features a week earlier, I would have saved hours. Honestly, this is where electronics stopped being something I was just surviving and became a superpower I get to keep.
Drop. Left magnet. Yep. Small belt.
And I'm so happy I went through all of this and didn't just jump to building my Iron Man suit, because now I can integrate all those awesome features in there. So was it worth it? 16 days, 66 hours, 14 hours of learning, 52 hours of building, a 1:4 ratio, which I think is pretty good. I do have a graveyard of fried servos, some LEDs I had to sacrifice to science, an electric pole that's been broken more times than I can count, and more debugging than my entire software career. Yeah, no, actually that's not true at all. Look, it's not perfect, the icon doesn't always survive the trip, all thanks to my superglue engineering and the somewhat unreliable inserters, which I can confirm is the fastest way to not finish a project on time. Which is also why a mechanical engineering challenge is coming in the near future. There was one more thing I really wanted to add but didn't have time. Sound, because I think having things like biter alerts from the game would have been awesome. I even bought the speakers, but I ran out of time and pins on the ESP32 and I didn't feel like introducing a second one, which is definitely something I'm gonna need to do for the Iron Man suit. Maybe 4 or 5 of them. Oh yeah, cause here's the reason I wanted to learn electronics. If you don't know, I'm building an entire Iron Man suit for a little challenge I started a few months ago. Overweight to Iron Man armor, or how I'm trying to lose 40 pounds to fit inside an Iron Man suit instead of scaling it to fit fat me. You can check all the details on my website, thibaudens.com. Anyway, before any of that Iron Man nonsense, this little factory had one more job left to do. Until now, every time the new subscriber sequence ran, it was just me pressing a button. So I had to tell the ESP32 to start watching my real sub count through the YouTube API. I'm not gonna bore you with the details, that was pretty straightforward. And the first time a real person subscribed while it was running, the whole diorama came to life. And honestly, it scared the crap out of me. And here's the thing, it still fires every single time someone subscribes. Now, as much as I would love to go play Factorio or even WoW, I've instead decided to turn my workshop into the birthplace of the first Iron Man suit Tony designed. Something I can totally do in 1 week, right?